I learned English without studying hard, and in this video I will share everything about how I did it. Although I grew up in a country where English isn't the first language, I went on to earn 2 university degrees in English, and I speak Spanish too. Drawing from these experiences, I have developed effective methods to learn languages quickly and easily. I will explain all of this in today's video. If you are learning a language other than English, feel free to alter where I say English with the language you're learning. Hi, I'm aaatekt. Welcome to a-tekt. I have a background in architecture, design, and business. Over the past 4 years, I have earned 3 degrees across 3 continents. On this channel, I share insights from my experiences, books, and research, everything I've learned and continue to learn. If you're interested in growth, creativity, and new perspectives, consider subscribing. I grew up in Japan, non-English speaking country, and I went to a regular school, not an international school, until university. I know some people who had special training like having lessons in English, but that was not the case for me. After that, I had a chance to study in the US for a bachelor's study, where I had the opportunity to get used to academic and advanced English. When I went to the US, I already had a good level in English to be able to understand the class and be able to talk to professors. Until that point, I studied by myself, and I did reach level 1, the highest level of English test in Japan. At school, I only had English class like you probably did. It was not even focus of my study, but my study was general studying. Back then, I was so into Glee, the American series. That's when I started to have some more interest in learning English. I watched Glee and obsessed, and even made a club at school, and I was leading it. Besides watching the English series, I started learning seriously, and especially for the step exam in Japan called a-tekt. There are several levels, and you start from 5 and go up to 1, and 1 is the most difficult one. I took the level 1, C1 in CEFR, and when I started university. I tried many ways to study English, and there are several ways to improve English without going through the most intense and difficult training. And I will show you how you can integrate the methods into your daily life, even if you're super busy. Plus, all the points I will talk about in this video are free. I would like to put this disclaimer first out there that you want to have the basics of English to use the tips I'm about to talk about. The level of English you learn until junior high school is enough to say that you have the basics. So in the scale of CEFR, around A2. First, I will talk about power or immersion. The best way to learn a language is to immerse oneself in the language, like to live in a country where they speak the language you are learning. Since you are forced to use the language 24/7, you're immersed in the culture, so you learn the language with the context. And also, you will actually live the language, meaning you are going to be using the language to live, eat, and find your place to live or make friends. When I studied Spanish, I lived in Mexico for 4 months, where I had no contact with English nor Japanese. I was forced to use Spanish, and that was when I learned the language the most. I had to use the language to survive in the situation, although I was, of course, the one who put myself into that situation. And I had a difficult time communicating with my host family and my teacher, but I started to understand more and speak. So because the amount of exposure to the language was enormous compared to when I was studying in non-Spanish speaking country in a classroom. Because of this exposure to the language, I started to think in Spanish rather than translating every time. So I learned in Spanish and I spoke in Spanish. So there was no time to translate everything. And this also means that input and output were so connected that there was no gap, and my language level skyrocketed. We learn to use the language and any knowledge actually when we put into practice. And that's why immersion is the best way and the fastest way to learn. But I think you cannot go to an English-speaking country right away because maybe you have no time or financial means to do it. I completely understand, and I was in the same situation as you. So in this case, making information you interact with into English as much as possible is the best way to approach language learning. There are many ways to do it and they are free. So if you have a device and access to the internet, just like you do right now. When I start learning a language, the first thing I do is to change the language setting on my phone so that I'm forced to use the language every time I want to do something with my phone. And another thing you can do is to look for news sites and apps that you are using daily in the language you are learning. So again, you're going to do the things you were doing daily, but just in a language you want to be good at. These should already be a good starting point, so you have a small immersive experience in English. And then my rule of studying is to make it fun. So now you want to enjoy the entertainment in English. You might spend some time relaxing, like watching Netflix or reading books. And it is the best way to learn English through the things you love about. If you're into games, you can watch YouTube videos, and if you're into action movies, you can watch those in English. Always remember to have fun in the process and enjoy it. So from here, I will go more into detail about how you can improve English through consuming media. Although I am a firm believer that it helps to spend time on speaking and writing English to actually be able to use it, the amount of English exposure at the early stage of language learning helped me a lot later on in speaking and writing. What's important is to have enough exposure to English. This absolute amount of English will help you be good at it, and it is best to implement it as a system in your daily life. I watched YouTube videos and Netflix in English. In the beginning, it is good to watch it with subtitles in your native language so you can start catching the phrases. And then when you start catching some phrases, you can try to not look at the subtitle and look at it only when you don't understand. When you get more comfortable with English, you can shift to English subtitles. I think this is very good practice for building a visual and auditory understanding of English. We all have different percentages of learning from different senses. I am a visual-oriented person. However, I think some people have auditory tendency, and utilizing both senses strengthens their understanding of the language. The ultimate goal is to watch the media without subtitles so that it is the closest to real life English. And this Chrome extension is useful for having two subtitles at the same time on YouTube and Netflix, so you can turn your native language on next to the one you are learning, so that you can turn entertainment into language learning. I watch YouTube videos at twice speed of normal speed because I'm time efficiency obsessed, but also it helps to learn the language. Maybe you have a hard time understanding native speaker because they speak so fast, but if you get used to faster audio, it gets easier to understand a native speaker because you would feel it is not so fast once you get used to the twice faster audio on YouTube or any video. You could speed up to 1.25, 1.5, 1.75 and 2 gradually. Reading helps you build a strong foundation in English. If you're a natural reader, please do continue and just alter your books to English ones. It might not be so easy at the beginning to read everything in English, but keep going without caring too much about each word. But enjoy, and it is important to grasp the general contents or storyline. You'll gradually understand more words by reading, as you will start to guess words out of context of the reading. It also happens to me when I read in Japanese that I guess some of the unfamiliar words in context. So at some point after reading different books, I realized that I already learned the meaning. It is always the best to learn vocab from actual context. If you're not a big reader, audiobooks through services like Audible are a great alternative. I've been using Audible for a while now, and it's perfect for busy people who can't sit down with a physical book. I listen to books while working out or doing chores, which lets me learn while multitasking. You'd be surprised how much learning time you can find in a day when using Audible. Audible has been my top choice, and since you can adjust the playback speed, it's ideal for language learning. Once you have a good foundation, you can also try to speak English. First, you can try to speak yourself, like I did, where I am a cray-cray person in front of a mirror or taking a bath. This will definitely help you think in English, which is the most important. This method worked really well for me, helping me get comfortable with English and build a strong foundation. While it has proven effective in my experience, but I cannot guarantee that it will work the same way for everyone. It's also important to note that combining this approach with grammar study enhances your English understanding. If you're interested in more videos on learning English, check out these out. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.